So my thought today was to speak a little bit about the style of the writing. I mean, the book was published in the 1850s, so quite a time ago. The style very much in keeping with the writing of the time, but so different from the writing of today. So I picked a couple of passages, some short passages, which kind of highlight that style, and I was going to read out a few of them. Just as a matter of interest, kind of a show of hands, who has read Moby Dick in its entirety? Oh, that's great. Okay. I myself didn't come to the book until later in life, and it was only actually through an academic setting that I came to the book, and I have to say I kind of speed-read some parts of it, because some parts of it can be quite turgid, but then other parts of it, there's some real gems in there, and the writing is fantastic in other areas. But just to give you a taste, as I say, of the style of writing, and just to give you a taste of the writing at the time, and what Melville was trying to achieve. So this is in chapter 16, and he's describing the Pequod for the first time. He's describing the ship. The chapter is entitled The Ship. And this is just a short excerpt. She was a ship of the old school, rather small if anything, with an old-fashioned, claw-footed look about her. Long seasoned and weather-stained in typhoons and calms of all four oceans, her old hull's complexion was darkened like a French grenadier's who had fought alike in Egypt and Siberia. Her venerable brows looked bearded, her mast, cut somewhere on the coast of Japan where her original ones were lost overboard the gale, her mast stood stiffly up like the spines of 3 old kings of Cologne. Her ancient decks were worn and wrinkled like the pilgrim-worshipped flagstone in Canterbury Cathedral, where Becket bled. And that's how he describes the ship as he sees it for the first time. I'm going to do a bit of rampant promotion here, self-promotion. This is my latest book, I'm at it, but what I wanted to just give you here was just a taste. You know, what a writer writes and what actually gets published are often very different from each other, primarily because of the editing process. So I want to just describe, or just read out a tiny passage here of how I describe a ship. Now this isn't exactly how I wrote it, as I say, first day. This is how it got edited down to its most concise. But just to give you a taste of what Melville had just written there on the Pequod, and what I'm going to read out here on a ship called the Retribution, which was a galleon at the time of the Armada. The Retribution was a galleon of the new race-built class, with her fore and aft castles raised, giving her a sleek, spear-like profile. At 450 tons and with a crew of 220, she carried 32 guns and was a fast and agile, purpose-built warship. And that's it. That's what I wrote to describe a ship, compared to what Melville wrote to describe the Pequod. Now I'm not sure, and as I say, I'll talk to Laurie on this, Laurie on this in terms of the editing of Melville. But the style is so different. If you talk about the pilgrim worship flagstone in Canterbury Cathedral where Becket bled, you couldn't write that today. You wouldn't be allowed to write that today in historical fiction. Too flowery. Flowery is something I'm often being accused of, and it gets cut straight away. So in that sense, how he describes detail, how he describes people, how he describes objects like the ship, like the inn at the beginning, and the other major characters, as I say. He puts a lot of depth into it, he puts a lot of interplay with various other things that he's seen or has read about himself, like Canterbury Cathedral, like French grenadiers who were fought in Egypt and Siberia. Whether he's actually ever come across any of these. But as I say, he weaves all of those into his descriptive passages when it comes to objects. When it comes to moods then, once again he can be quite flowery. It was a funny passage actually, I read it, but the more and more I read it, the more and more contemporary it actually sounds, considering he's talking about life at sea here. This is in chapter 35, and Ishmael is on the masthead. He's up in one of the crow's nests doing whale spotting, and he's talking about life at sea and the solitary nature of that. For the most part, in this tropic whaling life, a sublime uneventfulness invests you. You hear no news, read no gazettes, extras with startling accounts of commonplaces never delude you into unnecessary excitements. You hear of no domestic afflictions. Bankrupt securities, fall of stocks are never troubled with the thought of what you shall have for dinner, for all your meals, for 3 years and more, are snugly stowed in casks, and your bill of fare is immutable. So once again, very, very simple language now in this particular passage, and as I say, he's just describing the mood, and as I say, just a small snippet of life at sea. But I think where Melville really gets very good, and as I say, when reading Moby Dick, if you're not used to the writing of the time, as I say, and I wasn't when I first approached it, as I say, there's the temptation to rush through certain passages, as I say, particularly the ones where he's describing the whaling industry. But he describes a fantastic passage here, which I'd just like to read. It's my last one, and it's very brief again, and it's how he describes action. And he really does capture this, even in this very small paragraph that I'm going to read. He's talking about how it's on their first whale hunt. The first lowering is the name of the chapter, where they lower the boats in and they go whale hunting. And all 4 boats are chasing this whale. And here's where Queequeg throws a harpoon for the first time. And once again, it's that sense of urgency and sense of action. Now he builds to this, but as I say, I just wanted to read this very, very small passage to you. That's his hump. There, give it to him, whispered Starlock. A short, rushing sound leaped out of the boat. It was the darted iron of Queequeg. Then all in one welded commotion came an invisible push from the stern, while forward the boat seemed striking on the ledge. The sail collapsed and exploded. A gush of scalding vapour shot up nearby. Something rolled and tumbled like an earthquake beneath us. The whole crew were half suffocated as they were tossed helter-skelter into the white curdling cream of the squall. Squall, whale, and harpoon had all blended together, and the whale, merely grazed by the iron, escaped. As I say, now, up until this point, he builds, but as I say, it's these short spurts of action that Melville describes very, very well. And in many ways, the writing that he uses there is very contemporary. As I say, it would be pretty much as we would use today. Maybe some of the alliteration and so on and so forth would be taken out. But it's that fast pace that he was able to build into the action sequences, and the way he was able to capture emotion through very, very simple language. As I say, when it came to the descriptive passages then of people and things, it was far, far more emotive, more complex. But as I say, that style of writing has survived from the 1850s when Melville and his contemporaries wrote in styles very similar to this, and it survives to this day. As I say, when writing of action, as I say, it's that short, punchy sentences, it's that repetition. It is alliteration, and it's that whole idea of trying to speed the reader up as they read it to convey that sense of action. So, that ends my piece. Just to give you a taste, as I say, of the different styles of writing. Thank you very much.